So one of the things that can happen in the winter is you get inflamed, right? So orange is actually the kind of nature's color code to say that it helps inflammation, right? So even if you're not walking around and swollen, the body's inflamed in the interior, right? So it can happen in the digestion, it can happen in the shoulders, all through the body, and you don't even know it, right? You're just a little bit tired, you may not be able to reach as far in your forward bend. So these foods assist in the winter for inflammation. And it's a natural way to absorb it, right? It's a natural way when you're chewing and eating to absorb it. So we're gonna go with orange color today. And if you get a chance to go to a Good Karma Diet, it has a list of the things that are available right now in the market, right? Things that are seasonal. And when we talk about seasonal, it's because the body, even though we don't understand it, the body adjusts to the seasons, right? We might be eating strawberries now, but the body doesn't digest it as well. So if we start looking at things that are readily available in our area, then our body knows what to do with it. The body's extremely intelligent until we override it, right? Because all of a sudden we want all the winter vegetables or the winter or the summer vegetables, right? So we're going to talk about things that are going to be beneficial to the body today in the color orange for inflammation, okay? So we're going to start with a beautiful pumpkin curry. Now, you can get pumpkins in the market right now, but unfortunately, they're not as readily available. So if you don't have a pumpkin, and they're called sugar pumpkins right now, and they're about medium size, and they're in the majority of the supermarkets, but if you can't get it, I have about a half a cup here. You can also use butternut squash or acorn squash. So those are absolutely interchangeable. So we're gonna get the squash alone and the pumpkin separated, and we're gonna heat it over about medium heat with about half a cup of water. So we're gonna soften our squash before we make the curry. So we're softening up, and then we'll go ahead and make the curry. So curry is as versatile as the weather, right? So every household has a curry. I'm going to show you one that's simple and easy, because sometimes we pick up cookbooks that have curries and there's 30 different ingredients, right? So it makes it a little bit challenging. So for this particular one, for our winter curry, we're going to make a masala, and that masala is going to be coconut, fresh coconut, and coriander seed. And we're going to bloom our coriander seed. So the way we bloom our coriander seed is we get a small pan, right? And this is a beautiful step to give your curries a different body, right? It gives it a very flavorful taste. So we're going to warm a pan, and it should be pretty heavy. And to that, we're going to add I'm going to cook this for 4 people. So I'm going to add about a tablespoon of coriander seed, whole coriander seed. And I'm going to just brown those lightly. And a cast iron pan is so beautiful for this. You want to make sure that you use a heavier pan. When you use those lighter Teflon or non-scratch pans, they don't really bloom as well. So this retains the heat. So you really want to do it for about 1 to 2 minutes, gently blooming it. And the beautiful thing about curry is really the layering of the flavor, right? So we're going to start here in the blender. And now to these seeds, I'm going to add fresh coconut. Okay, now this is a flake coconut, unsweetened, organic, and this is from Trader Joe's. So this is relatively easy to get. And I'm going to add that about, I'd say, half a cup. And those of you who know me know that I usually make curry with coconut milk, but in the winter, we're going to do it this way because we want our curry to have body, right? We want it to have that texture. So just move the pan around and heat. And you want to give the coconut a nice toast. And when you're blooming your spices, which is so beautiful, you tend to use less, right? So you're not going through all your spices in your cabinet. So now we're browning this, and you don't want it too brown, just light brown, a beautiful tan. And this is a wonderful way, this curry, after you use your pumpkins in the fall, you use them as decorations, you can actually eat them. So if you're using them on your table, you can make a lovely curry. We did that this year, not with the jack-o'-lantern ones, but just with the ones on the table. And it was so nice to feel like you're using that food and it's not just a decoration. So this is smelling very warming. So now we're gonna add that to our blender. I have a Vitamix, but you can also add it to a Ninja. If you're making it for one, you can use a smaller blender. And to this, I'm gonna add just about half a cup of water because you want it to blend nicely. So in here we have toasted coconut and coriander. Now we're gonna go ahead and blend that. Beautiful. So now we're going to start to make our curry. In the summertime, I showed you how to make curry powder, but for this purpose, we're going to use store-purchased curry powder. If you have the time, it's a wonderful thing to make, but it's also readily available. So I'm going to get a pretty heavy pan again, and I'm going to put it on medium heat. Now to this pan, I'm going to add about a tablespoon of ghee. But if you're not cooking with ghee, you can go ahead and use safflower oil, grapeseed oil. And you can see that this ghee is very light. So we don't want to get it too hot. So we melt the ghee gently. Very good. I'm going to add about half a teaspoon of minced ginger. Ginger is amazingly good for the digestion. So we're going to add about half a teaspoon. Now you can add or detract however you like. I'm also going to add about half a cup of grated carrot. So we're starting to build our curry. Switch pans and build it here. So you're going to saute that for about 1 minute. Is there a question, Swamiji? Fresh. Now, if you have dry ginger accessible, you want to wait and add that kind of mid-curry. So if you're using fresh curry, you'd add it now. That's a good question. So saute this around. Now I'm going to add about, I'd say, a tablespoon of a good curry that you like. And not all curries are created equal. So get familiar with the different curries and find one that you like. I use it not spiced so that you can add spice into it. So I'm going to add a nice tablespoon. And this is also going to bloom, right? So this is going to become aromatic. So we're going to saute that. It's already smelling like a delicious curry. Now to this, I'm going to add 1 fresh vine-ripened tomato. If you don't have fresh, go ahead and use maybe a 1/4 cup of canned. And you can add that at the same time. If you can get the organic canned, it's much better for the body. So now I'm going to place that in. And it's beginning to get that really rich yellow color, right? So you want that really nice color. Now, if you want to add a little bit of spice, I use Thai green chili. But if you prefer, you can use any type of chili. You can also use the crushed red chili, but just be very, very small amount, because the curry has so many flavors, you don't want to overpower, right? This isn't the time to like be really spicy, right? So we want a nice balance in our curry. Yes?
Do you prefer dry curry mix or curry paste?
Oh, that's an excellent question. I prefer paste, actually, and it's really easy to make. And you know what? If you go on a Good Karma diet, I'll put a recipe for the paste, and it's so easy you'll never buy it again. But yes, I prefer the paste. But remember, the powder is actually stronger than the paste. So say if you're using a tablespoon of powder, you want to use maybe a tablespoon and a half of the paste. So this is doing really well. So now we're going to add just a touch of water because it's getting a little bit hot. So a good idea when you're making a curry is to absolutely have a hot boiling water with you. So I have a hot teapot, and you can have any type of water that you want. So this is broken down and nice. So now I'm going to go ahead and add our pumpkin squash mixture. So we'll say that this has been simmering till it's about fork tender. You know, just take a little bit of the edge off. So now I'm going to add this. And I'm going to cover this, but I want to salt it. And the salt is right here. So today I'm using Himalayan pink salt, so nice, because you're adding the salinity, but you're also getting minerals. And the pink salt is quite lovely. I buy it whole, and then I crush it, and that's less expensive. So when you buy it in the more whole amount. Oh, this is so beautiful. So I'm going to go ahead and cover that. So this is going to simmer for about 20 to 25 minutes, not too long, and then we'll continue with making it. Now I wanted to show you a little bit about brown rice. Brown rice is one of my favorites in the winter because again, it adds those grounding quality. It has a grounding quality, right? Our vata can kind of go out of balance during the winter, right? Easily out of balance. So you want to enjoy grounding foods. So normally I would serve a curry with basmati rice or a white rice, but we're going to take the opportunity to use a nice brown rice. There's a question, Swamiji? So I have, right now, I'm using medium grained brown rice. I recommend it compared to short or long. It's kind of like the perfect cooking time. It usually kind of matches up with the dishes, right? So I'm going to go ahead and put that in a pan. And again, it has to be a heavy pan. And by the time the curry's done, the rice will be done as well. So it'll be wonderful. So I'm going to add just a little bit of ginger to give it just a mild flavor, usually about a quarter of a teaspoon, not too much. But remember, ginger is good for the blood and the body. So whenever we can put it in, it's good. But it has to be balanced. You can't taste a dish and then, oh my gosh, there's so much ginger, right? So to this, I want to add boiling water. And for brown rice, it's 2 to 1. So you're going to add 2 cups of boiling water to your heated pan. And then you're going to cover that, simmer it on low. Now, if you'd like, you can add 1 to 2 teaspoons of ghee here. But if you're watching your weight or if you tend to be a little sluggish in the winter, go ahead and omit it. You don't have to have it here. So stir that around for just a moment. Now you put the boiling water in so you don't have to wait for it to boil because it really boils right away. It kind of flashes that grain. So now I want to cover it. I'm going to cover it and I'm going to simmer it for about 35 minutes.
Do you soak out the impurities from the rice? I have read it has arsenic in it.
Yes, basmati rice has a tendency to have arsenic in it, but I rinse all of our rices. I think they're getting that. That's a very popular sentiment right now. In fact, one of the Swamis, Swami Aneshananda, sent me an article on it recently. I haven't had it to read. But just like in anything, you want to go ahead and briskly wash it. you know, anything that you're doing, even organic vegetable or basmati rice, quinoa, all of the grains, because they're handled in a way. And if you don't take the time to rinse it, then say the percentage of arsenic that's in your rice, your body has to filter, right? So you might as well just rinse it off in the sink. Otherwise, it's in the body. It can go into the joint system. It can cause inflammation, right? I mean, I think you probably have to eat about, you know, 25,000 pounds of rice in order to actually be arsenic poisoned. But you have to remember that this small amount of arsenic is also on top of other things that we put into our bodies unknowingly, right? So if we can take one of them out, then good on us, right? So good, thank you for asking that question. Go ahead and rinse it, definitely. So anyway, I've heard that more with white rice. So we're gonna simmer this about 35 minutes on low heat. Now, if you're currently getting over something, or if you've had a sickness, or you're just a little bit tired, then go ahead and simmer it for 40 to 45 minutes, right? It's okay to simmer it because al dente, if you're healing, you don't need, right? We don't want al dente anything. We want everything to be cooked through. And don't worry, with brown rice, it's much more forgiving than white rice. So if you need to cook it a little bit more, then go ahead and do that. Very good. So the rice and the curry is going to be ready at basically the same time, which is always nice. And some people ask, well, I'm trying to, oh, thank you. Here, I think I need to get this guy. Maybe take this whole guy. Sure. Or no, this guy. Okay. There. They ask me, oh, rice, I'm trying to stop and lose all this weight. And it's kind of, you know, it's bringing me down. And I always say, no. Use grains healthily, right? Stir in grains at the bottom of your bowl with fresh vegetables because your body needs that. It needs the grains, right? So there's no reason to shy away from a good grain. In fact, it really gets the body moving, which is important. Very good. So now I want to show you a little bit of ideas for roasted vegetables. Because sometimes I know for me, I can get in a little bit of a rut, right? So I'm roasting potatoes, I'm roasting yams, I'm roasting sweet potatoes. I want to give you a little bit of variations that are still in the winter, right? So these are still vegetables that are readily available. And they're so lovely. I want to start with this one. This is a rutabaga. It is so beautiful. It stays with this purple top, and then this is a white bottom, and it's a root vegetable. And someone told me that they actually keep them in the ground, and then when they're ready to eat it, they pull it out. I mean, it stays there like all winter. It's amazing. So it's really beautiful and a wonderful addition to roasted vegetable. And they're very inexpensive right now, relatively speaking. I mean, a lot is expensive, but it's relatively inexpensive, not too much more than white potato. And then right now in season are Brussels sprouts. Brussels sprouts are so delicious. They're so wonderful to roast. You know, they kind of went through a stage of a lot of balsamic vinegar, and you add in blue cheese, and I think they were trying to cover up the beauty of this vegetable. This is a lovely vegetable, and it just needs a little bit of ghee and salt, right, when you're roasting it, but we're gonna roast with olive oil today. Also, in your market, you're gonna find parsnips, which I'm a huge parsnip fan. And again, this is a beautiful alternative to roasting potato, hugely high in magnesium. So a wonderful vegetable for joint support. And then I have a beautiful yam and a sweet potato. I was also able to find these beautiful purple potatoes. So if you have the time, just go away a little bit from the regular old mashed potatoes and things. And these are so lovely. You can also get Okinawa yams, which is a purple Japanese yam. And that's super high in vitamin E and vitamin C. So it really will take care of your eyes as well as a little bit of your vitamin C intake. So this is relatively easy. The only thing is that some of these cook at different temperatures. So the only practice that you need with roasting vegetables is to kind of cut them in a way that allows for all of them to cook at the same time, right, and together. So this curry is doing really well. I'm gonna switch gears for a minute. It's very nice. It's so lucky with pumpkin and squash, it cooks so quickly. So you can literally make this curry and have it on the table in an hour. I'm gonna go ahead and add our masala, and that was our coconut and our coriander. And it gives it a little bit of body, right? It's not so much as a summer curry. It's a little bit heavier. Oh my goodness, so lovely. So now I'm gonna turn this down and gently simmer for about another, keep going for another 20 minutes or so. So nice. And then the beautiful thing with this curry is the squash and the pumpkin release liquid, right? It really releases when it's cooking. So it adds that flavor into the curry. It's so nice. Okay, so for our roasted vegetable tray, we want to use our yam. And the way I cook the yam is I go lengthwise, and then I go very diagonal. And I don't make huge pieces, but not too small. So we just make diagonal half circles. And we're going to roast them at 400 on a parchment sheet. So if you have parchment paper or one of those silk pads, this is a wonderful time to use it. Because believe it or not, these beautiful vegetables have a lot of sugars in them. And when you combine sugar and heat, sometimes it can burn. So this parchment paper helps you to keep those juices in. So I have my yam, and I'm gonna cut it again in diagonals. Then for our preparation on Brussels sprouts, so easy, just gently pull the leaf apart, take off the darker end. I like to make just a little cut on the foot of the Brussels sprout, and then add that. Thank you. I'm gonna add some butternut squash. So what I did here is I cut it and peeled it. With squash, you have to peel it. They say, oh no, the peeling's fine. It's really not. Unless you chew your food, which not too many people do, 31 times before you swallow, peel the squash. Absolutely, because otherwise you're gonna be at the dinner table for 3 days, which can be nice, but not so much. So now we wanna take the squash and we're just gonna make it in about 1/2-inch cubes, right? Because our yams aren't that big, we can't have big pieces of butternut squash. But butternut squash cooks faster than yams. So you want your butternut squash cooked a little bit larger. Now, the beautiful thing about roasting winter vegetables is you don't have to put a lot of things on it, right? You don't see me putting in a lot of spices, or the vegetables are so rich and gorgeous at this time. There's no need to do that. So I added my butternut squash. Now I'm going to take my turnip, and the turnip, you only need to peel all the white. You can go ahead and leave that little bit of a purple on it. Okay, so I'm going to cut my turnip in half, and then I'm going to cut it in 4 wedges. And it cooks about the same as a butternut squash. So I'm going to add that on. Oh, so nice. Now our Brussels sprouts again. And you can just add as many as you'd like. But I'll give you a secret. If you want to roast a whole tray, go ahead and use the leftover to make soup. It is such a beautiful soup. You just take the roasted vegetables you have left over, add it into the blender with some beautiful vegetable stock, and it's divine. So we're very lucky with these vegetables right now. Everyone thinks the summer is so rich and full, but the winter has so many beautiful classic vegetables. So again, just trim the Brussels sprout. And now I'm going to take our beautiful purple potato, and I'm just going to cut it in half. And you can see how gorgeous they are, right? They're beautiful, rich purple. And I also have a very small red potato that I'm going to add. And if you'd like on this, you can put the potatoes down on the parchment paper, and that'll brown the cut side, which is nice. So you'll see that the half potato is very small. Oh, that's so beautiful. Now, to finish, I'm going to take our Himalayan pink salt, and I'm going to salt gently. And then, may I have that olive oil? Thank you. Thank you so much. Then I have organic olive oil, and remember to spend the money on the oils, because that's what the body needs to kind of lubricate itself. But you don't want something that it has to process. So the closer it is to organic, the better. So I'm just going to very gently toss that with olive oil. Now, one of the nice vegetables, oh, this is really moving, or one of the nice herbs that they have right now for winter, the curry's doing really well, is thyme. So sage, thyme, rosemary are all very hearty herbs that you can use in the winter. I'm going to use thyme today. And what you're going to do is just gently scrape the stem and just put it over. So it should just be a hint of the thyme. Because sometimes if we put too many herbs in, that's what you're tasting, right? You want it to enhance the vegetable. So you can do that by just gently layering it on. Now, one of the really lovely things I like to do with the roasted vegetables too is take fresh green beans. These have high protein, and you just gently place them on top of your vegetable. And then a little bit of olive oil. And you can be creative with whatever you have, but I wanted you to just look at things as an option. I also have fresh walnuts, and we're going to put a few walnuts on. And a few pecans. Beautiful. And then we're going to finish this when they're done roasting with dried cranberries. So after you roast the vegetable, we're going to sprinkle just a few dried cranberries, and that gives you kind of that bitter taste, which is so important for the digestion. So when you're working with different types of taste, that little bit of bitter is going to wake up your digestion. So now we're going to roast this. Here you go. Grab that, if you could, Ishwari.
I'm sorry.
You can roast those, but show them if you will.
Absolutely.
So this is what you would have.
Beautiful.
And you'll see I kind of spread them out and then add the green bean. And these are going to roast again in about a 425-degree oven. I know, it's right. It is lovely. So you're going to roast them in about a 425-degree oven. Yeah, just stick it in there. And then about 20 or 25 minutes. And remember, if you go ahead and roast a whole tray, you can make a beautiful soup with it. It's quite lovely. So we're going to take a look at our curry. Very nice. So it needs a little bit of salt. This is a good time to taste test. Salt is here. Very good. And cover it. It's simmering gently. Now I wanted to talk a little bit while this is simmering, and then I'll show you how to finish a curry. But I want to talk a little bit about black pepper and salt. I have about 3 questions on salt and pepper. And it's good questions because those are basically what you put in your recipe. Pepper is one of the things in Ayurveda that is used to take different type of herbal medications into the body, right? So many times when we're having golden milk, we'll put black pepper in it. Or if you have ghee, if you have aches and pains and you're taking turmeric orally, you'll add a little bit of black pepper and that'll make it go even further into the body, right? So black pepper is a lovely spice, and on its own, it's heating. right? So again, it's something that moves the energy in the body in a positive way. So in wintertime, black pepper becomes an essential part of the food. So the best way to get black pepper at its full best is to get the peppercorns. Oh, it's going low battery here. I'll have to put, there's a charger right there. Thank you. Is to get the whole peppercorn.
Do you need the surge protector?
And just buy the whole peppercorn. And then I have a mortar and pestle, but I didn't bring it out today. Thank you. I don't think it'll reach. There's another one in that box, I think, an extension. So here's a pestle. So take your fresh peppercorns and really only make like, 4 tablespoons at a time, because the difference between when you're tasting the peppercorns versus the ones that come in the black pepper shilling, I think everyone has it, things is incredibly different. I mean, so what you do is you just get your peppercorns and then you smash them and they have little white shells inside. So your pepper begins to look kind of like black and white. Yeah, and then that's the way you serve it. So this again is for anti-inflammation, and it's kind of overlooked. People just kind of put it on and this and that, but it really does have a medicinal purpose. And we're so lucky that I can share that with you. In fact, I'm going to put a little bit into our curry. And sometimes when you go to your practitioner, they'll advise you to have ashwagandha or different types of herbs. It's also a great thing if you have your powder herbs, to add your powder herbs with a little ghee and a little black pepper. And it's kind of like giving it a boost. It's one of those boosts for any herbs you're taking. Then I wanted to talk a little bit about salt. So Himalayan pink salt is wonderful, right? So it's a little bit expensive, but remember that we're going to use just a little bit of it in our dishes. And the way you can get it a little less expensive is by getting it coarse. Now they have different, you can get those grinders, right? Like a pepper grinder, but it's for salt. You can do that, or you can do what we just did. Get a nice handful, put it in a bowl, and then do your mortar and pestle, right? So you begin to kind of really awaken the salt. So this you have to practice with it because it's a little bit saltier, but it's kind of a mineral salt, which is really nice. It gives it that mineral flavor. So you go ahead and crunch those, and that's it. So now you have your salt and pepper to use for cooking. Such a nice way to do. So now I'm going to look at the curry, and I'm going to show you how to kind of, we can use that too. So we have this here, which is huge, but it's a really good way to kind of do your herbs, right? If you have cumin or coriander, wonderful. So I'm going to show you how to finish a curry. So we have it simmering, very good. I'm going to heat a pan to about medium heat. So we're going to turn this off because the curry is basically done now. So we're going to finish it. Now, if you don't have this step at home, that's okay, right? This is just something that adds that kind of special flavor to it. We're going to do a thing called tempering, right? So we're going to do a tartak. We're going to snap the seeds that we're going to add. Now, if you need to leave this step off, it's fine too. So I'm going to take our ghee and I'm going to add about a tablespoon, not too much. And when you're heating this, you want to have your things ready because it goes really fast. So we're going to heat the pan. Now you melt the ghee, and the ghee is going to foam a little bit. It's going to have a little bit of bubbles on it. Very good. So once it reaches a pretty high temperature, a little bit before burn, you don't want it to be smoky. This is a non-smoking section. So what you want to do then is take about, I'd say, a nice tablespoon of black mustard seeds. Now, if you don't have black mustard seeds, you can go ahead and add mustard powder here, cumin powder and coriander. But the black seeds kind of really give it that authentic taste. So I want to put that into our pot. Now this is going to spitter and spatter because we want to pop them and they'll begin to splitter. I'll cover it so that you can hear it. So it's kind of like when you're making popcorn. It begins to really spitter and sputter. If you're using dried chilies, you can also add that here. So they're popping, can you hear it? They're like little, it's very neat. So they're popping, but they're becoming very fragrant. And it really elevates kind of a simple curry to a beautiful experience. So if you have curry leaves available to you, they're available in most Indian stores. This is where you'd wait till they're done popping and you'd pop those in. And you can see these are a little wet. And stand back. You can get a little warm. Then you're going to take your leaves, see it just a few seconds, and you're going to add this to your curry. Oh, so nice. So with the pumpkin curry, oh, question?
Can you use dehydrated curry leaves?
Yes. Yes, that's so funny you asked that. They also have dried ones. They have dried curry leaves, and you can rehydrate them. And they can, I think they also have, someone told me they freeze them in places. So if you buy a bunch of them, you can freeze them. So with this curry, if you're serving it in the evening time, you could add a little curd, add a little bit of yogurt, but remember again, that depends on your diet and how you're feeling. Yes. You also can finish this dish with fresh cilantro. If you have fresh cilantro, just chop it gently, and a half squeeze of lemon juice.
I don't think I've seen curry leaves in the store. Where can you find them?
They're Indian store. They're usually Indian store, but you can go ahead and get the dried ones. But if you find an Indian store that's like willing to mail it to you, that means that like you're gonna really invest in curries, right? It does change the flavor of it, but it's still so delicious for the summer or for the winter. So don't get hung up on the curry leaves. Go ahead and make it without the curry leaves, which is just fine. Just pop the mustard seeds and then finish it with cilantro, right? Fresh coriander. So it's very similar. You have to be really know your curries to know if there's not curry leaves in it. I have made so many and I tell you I couldn't tell. It just adds just somewhat of a little bit of a nuance in the very subtle world. It's a very subtle flavor.
Mahalakshmi ji, can you kindly, if you have a minute, just review the pumpkin curry from the beginning? What did you do in the very beginning?
So an important part of a curry is to build it. You have to keep building flavors. So for this particular pumpkin curry, we had a half cup of fresh pumpkin, and that right now in the season is sugar pumpkin, right? So you cut that in half, you peel it, and then you section out about a half a cup. I also added half a cup of butternut squash. You can also use acorn squash. I didn't use it today, but it's very, very forgiving. So any type of pumpkin or squash you have on hand. Now I put a little bit of water, about half a cup of water over my pumpkin, and I let it simmer for about 20 minutes. And while that was simmering, I created our curry, all right? So you start with a heavy pan, you add a little bit of ghee, and to that you add a little bit of carrot, a little bit of tomato, a little bit of salt, and you stir that gently. And then you add your curry powder. I used a tablespoon of curry powder, and of course you can make your own curry powder again. And also I'll put a recipe on it for the on the Good Karma diet. I then made my masala. So in my masala, I had about a tablespoon of coriander seeds and also about half a cup of browned or lightly sauteed coconut. And to a blender, I added that, and then I added in about half a cup of water. You want it enough to blend it so it thickens it, right? And you want to blend it a good 10 or 15 minutes. So I use that masala in the winter instead of coconut milk in the summer because it adds a little bit more body to your curry. So then as my pumpkin was simmering, I continued to toast my curry powder I had put in. And I also wanted to add a little bit of water, right? So we don't want to burn our curry. The powder will burn quickly. So we want to make sure we have a little bit of water and begin to just simmer it. And to that, I added fresh Himalayan pink sea salt. And I also added a little bit of black pepper. Then after I had simmered my curry for about 10 or 15 minutes, I add my masala. So I simply add my masala to the curry and then add our pumpkin. And we simmer that for another 15 or 20 minutes. And it's absolutely divine, definitely. I also added one green chili pepper, and that's certainly an option. But again, in the winter time, the spice can bring the mood up. It actually can help with tamas. So if you're having a little bit of a lower winter, to add a little spice of the food can elevate the mind slightly.
She's just asking, is it a blend of half cup pumpkin and half cup butternut squash?
Yeah, you can do that. Half cup pumpkin, half cup butternut squash. If you're making it for 2 to 4 people, add more squash. And then it just it's a nice heavy stew, remember that. So eating that with brown rice, you only need a cup per person, right? So a cup of your curry over your brown rice and then served with your roasted vegetables, lovely. So let's see, I think that's it today. We have to follow. Are there any questions?
Sounds yummy. Sounds yummy.
I know. You have got to open up to the world of pumpkin. It's absolutely delicious. And I think it's overlooked, right? We think all we do is carve pumpkin faces. Not true. I mean, it's delicious. And you can also make pumpkin bread and all sorts of pumpkin things. So remember that next November, because the markets start removing them. And the gentleman at the grocer said that they start removing them in early December. So just so you know, even though
can you just buy pumpkin and just keep them in a cool place for a long time and then use them through the winter?
Exactly. That's another thing. Is they're super storable, but you can't mar it, right? So if it has a face, or if you cut it, or if it has an indentation, then it kind of molds. But if you keep it in your pantry, it doesn't have to be in the refrigerator. It's just like a potato. Keep it in your pantry. You can use them. We made this most delicious curry, and we used the pumpkins from, I think they were October, and we made a nice curry at the end of November. So it's quite nice. But you'll see if it gets a little bruise into it, or you can tell. But I'm going to practice this year and see how long they have for a shelf life.
So this is the Halloween pumpkin you're talking about. We can use those
I'm talking orange pumpkins. Now, if you're in the Indian store, they have white pumpkins. They have kind of different pumpkins, but it's in that family. But there's white pumpkins, there's green pumpkins, there's a whole pumpkin colors. Amazing. And they're quite lovely. They're great for the body too in the winter. So very good. Now, I also wanted to say in this recipe, we didn't necessarily have a lot of protein, but I want you to remember that all protein doesn't have to be in one meal. But if you're working out and you're increasing your protein, you can substitute your brown rice for quinoa, and that'll give you the protein that you need. Any questions? Or was there one, Swamiji? No?
Everyone says thank you.
Oh yeah, you're totally welcome. Thank you so much. It was so good to see you.
Hi Madhavi, this is Anjali.
Hi, how are you?
I'm so good.
Are you in San Francisco?
I'm not. I attended your class so I can say hi, and I ate your food already.
I know, you've eaten my food, and survived. So I'm telling you, the
No,
recipes
it
are
was
lovely.
wonderful. It was wonderful. Whoever has attended your class, they should be delighted that they are learning from you.
Oh, that's so sweet. I'm gonna get clutched. I'm a little emotional in the winter time, so you'll have to excuse me.
I know.
I'm weepy in the winter, but thank you.
Yeah.
It's so good to see you, and I hope to see you in the ashram.
You know what? After attending your class, just 1 minute of your time I take. I finished my yoga teacher training.
Oh,
Oh,
congratulations. Heather, you too.
congratulations.
You guys are Guru Bai, sisters.
We'll discuss it.
We'll discuss it.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a page called Good Karma Diet, and it has the recipes. If you weren't able to write them down,
Yeah.
so you'll go there and I'll put them on there.
Okay.
All right, thank you so much for coming, and it was so lovely seeing everyone.
I want
And
to
I'll
say,
see you next week.
can I say something?
Yes, of course.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to let you know that I made my kids the Moroccan stew with the salad,
Yeah.
and they loved it. It was
Oh my God, that's so.
really good.
Did you take a
The
picture?
no, oh,
No, next time.
I really should have. It was gorgeous. But the
I
one
know.
thing I wanted to ask you is we ate the salad first and it was very
Okay.
strong, and then the stew was very mild. So should we switch it?
No, because believe it or not, when you have that lemony, when you have that burst of acidic, it's called an
Yes.
acidic salad, that
Uh-huh.
creates pathways in the body to absorb your food. That helps you to assimilate your food.
Okay.
Yeah, so I always recommend to have that nice punch. I mean, obviously not too strong, but have a nice punch, and that gets your juices flowing for your good digestion. And it's wonderful for children. If your children can have it, it's perfect.